It has to do with it has to do with doctors. So I'm afraid I would cause a fight at the next convention. So I'll just move. I'll just move on and do that a little bit later on. Let me get in the studio. It is at home, rather, Dr. Katherine Pannel. Good morning, ma'am. How are you?
Good morning. I'm good. Thank you.
I don't know. Maybe I do need to read this. There was a story in here. Hang on. Let's see if I can. I had it on the top of the sheet here, and for some reason it got away from me, so I'll have to do it a little bit later on. But it did. Oh, here it is. Are women better surgeons? New study found that patients with female surgeons are less likely to have post-operative complications than those who have male surgeons. Doctors in Canada and Sweden reviewed more than 1 million patient records, learned that the patients who had female surgeons for their procedures had better outcomes and fewer problems after surgery. The researchers said they believe that women operate more slowly and that taking their time during surgery results in better outcomes for the patient. So again, if that causes some squabbles at the next convention, you didn't hear it here. So there we are. Let me get to a couple of things. And first of all, when you look at where we are in the state of Mississippi as far as the crisis is concerned, and we were talking last week about this, and as a matter of fact, earlier this week on International Overdose Awareness Day, it is a crisis in the state of Mississippi, and I don't think any of us can point to any statistical data saying that it's going down or that the crisis is over. So your thoughts on this?
No, I definitely, we don't think it's going down. And, numbers haven't come out for 2022, but they're not looking good for both, mental health issues and overdose issues.
What are we going to do? What can we do to address this in the 2024 legislative session? Because there are a lot of people talking about this now. We're going to have a 4-month session. We got to have some new blood in there as far as House and Senate. What do we do? What can we do?
The legislature did some really good work on the overdose side of things. They passed legislation to put together curriculum for the state of Mississippi, whether it be in schools or other outlets, to basically teach our youth about the dangers of substance use with an emphasis on fentanyl, which is great. We actually meet this week to get that curriculum going, so I'm excited about that. But also the legislature, passed to decriminalize fentanyl testing strips, which is a solid way to prevent deaths from overdoses. I think we were going to have to go back in and do some tweaking on that because, it seems like something pops up new every single day. It's a new substance. And right now we're dealing with xylazine, which right now those strips won't test for. So we need to put some wording in there that allows for us to continue, testing equipment for the things that pop up that we weren't prepared for.
Doc, can you educate us a little bit on what you just mentioned? You said Valadine, or what was it called?
It's xylazine. It's with an X, XY. It is just a sedative. It's a tranquilizer. It's not approved for human use. It's often used for animal sedation, and it works like an opioid in that it's extremely sedating. But it also, the scary part is it makes opioids and fentanyl much more dangerous, and it's often mixed with both. So it increases the dangers of opioids, but also it can cause really icky sores and ulcers on your skin where you inject it. And the really scary part is that naloxone, which we use to reverse fentanyl overdoses, it does not work for xylazine.
Does it come in a pill form also?
Well, it's a substance that's typically mixed with other things. You don't see usually standalone xylazine.
Has it showed up in our state?
I think there have. I don't know of any confirmed cases because we don't really have a good way to test for it. But it has been showing up all over the nation. It's becoming a national problem.
Yeah, I'm wondering what are your thoughts. And again, we're talking with Dr. Katherine Pannel. What are your thoughts on the news that broke several weeks ago that the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, they announced that they would recommend moving marijuana from Schedule 1 to Schedule 3?
I do think we do need more research into marijuana to see if there is really any evidence-based, legitimate medicinal use for it. And until we do that, we really don't know. I personally see so much negative from marijuana. I don't love the idea of moving it to Schedule 3, but Schedule 3 does make it get it, you can't put it on the counter. It just still would have to be used for medicinal purposes only. So it's kind of following the state laws that are occurring anyway.
Yeah, I read through most of this, and I think the one thing that people were hoping was that as far as the banking situation, but reading this from several different sources, I'm not sure it's going to change the banking situations right now. It's kind of all up in the air about what would happen with that.
I just think it's a very, very complicated topic for multiple reasons, whether it's financial, medical, and I think we need to take our time and really look at what the fallout long term could be.
Man, we had a terrible story the other day, and we had some guests on and talking about that. Miss Fisher, as a matter of fact, she was talking about it on the vaping apparatuses that are being used now. Kids or companies are concealing this in school supplies, whether it's an eraser or even a cell phone itself. They're fake. Some of the highlighters are fake. They're vaping mechanisms. Are you seeing a lot of this as far as at the Right Track Medical Group?
Yes, and not even just with Right Track. I have 3 kids. One's now a teenager, and she comes home telling me about it too. Vaping has become a serious issue amongst our youth, and that's another issue that they're not fully educated on. They think that it's benign, especially when it comes in things like strawberry-flavored pods. They just don't understand the dangers of vaping, and there's a myth that it's safer than cigarettes. And I hate that term safer. It should be less harmful, because cigarettes are harmful, but vaping is harmful. It may be less harmful, but it's still harmful.
Do you know of any overdeaths or rather overdoses on this?
No, I haven't heard of any vaping overdose deaths. I know that some of the pods can contain THC, but no, I've not heard of any overdose-related deaths due to vaping.
I guess most of this coming from, they certainly could order them in the mail, I'm sure, but most of this is coming from these convenience stores?
Yes, the convenience stores have really become a thorn in psychiatric providers' side. We've got vaping, we've got kratom, we did have tianeptine, which hopefully that's been solved by legislation from the last session, but it seems like some of the things that are causing the most public health problems right now are actually behind the counters of convenience stores.
It's got to be something that we're not catching here. It's got to be a reason that the legislature, they have some type of constitutional protection or whatever, because it just seems like the legislature would take care of this in one fell swoop, and it's very, very difficult. As you mentioned, I think we started with bath salts many years ago, and this was inclusive, I do believe, in a special session or something. It was so critical out there, as well as pseudo-FNF, the heart medicine or the allergy medicines.
Right. The problem is we don't learn about the things that are on the convenience store counters until it's become a major issue. We've got to come up with some type of legislation, some type of solution that gives someone the authority to check these substances before they even enter a convenience store. Because once they're out there, it's just that whole thing about the toothpaste coming out of the tube. It's really hard to bring it back in when it's out there and it's already causing problems.
And it's also disappointing that these are hometown people. These are hometown merchants, regardless of what country you come from, regardless of what city or state the home office is in. You are now Mississippians operating in Mississippi, and you're hurting a lot of people out there doing this, and just
the
in
really
that
sad part is
ethics,
it's our youth. That's right. You're harming Mississippians, but they're targeted towards our youth, and that's really shameful and sad.
Well, it's very difficult to say it's not when you look at the different flavors and the way they are packaged. We'll continue the conversation with Dr. Katherine Pannel. When we talk about the drug abuse and the mental illness, I would think mostly in younger people, but I may be wrong about that, those two things are linked a lot of times in a lot of these cases.
No doubt. With our youth, we need to start focusing on coping skills. That's why they are seeking out things like vapes or other drugs, is because they're trying to find a quick fix to make themselves feel better, when we need to be really talking to them and teaching them coping skills to deal with their feelings and emotions so that they don't seek out that quick fix.
Isn't it kind of a generational thing, though? Because remember when we talked about little Johnny in a grocery aisle demanding he have to have something, some cereal, and Mom capitulates and says, okay, you can have it, stop crying. I know that's a simplistic thing, but that's kind of happened in the generation since the boomers. It really has. And there are no consequences for your bad actions. No more spanking. You're not even sitting in a corner. You got to sit down and go through therapy exactly why you're doing this, and it never works. You take that all the way out to the streets, what you see now, and you look at places like San Francisco, but not only there. You can find it just about every big city in the country. And this mental illness that we have here is so connected to the drug use, these people are actually walking dead, and it's hard to believe that it's America.
Yeah, it's actually really sad. This month is Suicide Prevention Month. It's September, and it's sad to see that we are 2022 is on. 2022. We haven't gotten all the full numbers in, but it's on track to be the year with the highest suicide rates. We're seeing increasing depression, anxiety, mental illness. It's becoming more prevalent, and the sad thing is, and we're seeing this now in Mississippi, is the access to care is becoming less prevalent.
I go back to the song that is just rocked everything in the music industry, and that's the Rich Man of Richmond from Oliver Anthony. And again, what I took away from that song, first of all, was someone, to me, and I may be totally wrong, but each person takes away whatever they want to from the song. And what I took away from the song is almost like somebody who had been in their parents' basement forever and also came out and couldn't cope with the world. I mean, blaming everything on somebody else. In our day, as far as baby boomers, you tough it up and you just do it. I hate to sound like a Nike slogan, but you just do it. And you fight through that. And you use the words coping skills. We have a whole generation of people who can't do that. They've never had tragedy or toughness in their life.
That's true. You always hear that we're now in the time of the participation trophy, that nobody wants to hurt anybody's feelings or make them be accountable for the things that they've done wrong. And we as parents, we are the start of that, and we need to look at our own parenting ways and make sure that we are instilling in our children these coping skills.
Yeah, well, it's true, because we have gone to the point where in our day, at some point, you have to make a realization that every painting you put on the refrigerator from your kids is a masterpiece. But at some age, you have to go and say, Harry, the rabbit you drew is not really a good depiction of a rabbit. And I hate to tell you this, but you are 14 years old now. So, I mean, but we don't do that anymore.
No, and I'm actually guilty of that. I'm the mom that puts them on the refrigerator,
yes.
and then I won't have any room, and I'll put one in the garbage, and then my kid finds it and is like, Mama, you threw away my picture. So I'm guilty of that too. But yes, you're right. We can't continually shelter and protect our children. Life is never going to be easy. We're going to always have stressful situations, and just guarding them from that until they are out on their own is not going to lead to a good situation. We've got to teach them early on how to deal with life stressors.
It really is simple when you start thinking about it, as far as us being part of this ecological life on Earth. We sometimes forget that tough love is the best love, no matter what species we are here. And because of our brain and because of our sophistication and the way we have evolved, we've gotten away from that. And that's what we all want. My grandparents wanted my parents to have a better life. We do too. And we all struggle with that. We want to make sure you don't go through what we did, but we want you to appreciate it. And then there's this dichotomy of the fact that you can't appreciate it unless you go through it. So
that's right. And I tell my
one
kids,
of those things. Yeah.
Yes. I mean, I tell my kids all the time, if I didn't care and didn't love you, I'd let you do whatever you wanted to and wouldn't care what happened. But because I love you, that's why I have to make difficult decisions and make sure that you're protected. But you have to get in trouble and you have to have consequences for your actions. That's because I do love you.
Yep. Tough love, tough work. At the end of the day, those are two things that work, and we need to battle down and bat it down and make sure we do this in the next legislative session to find out a way to improve this, especially at the convenience stores, if that's a possibility. It's always good having you on. I appreciate it very, very much.
Thank you. I always wish we had more time.